Please bear with me while I adjust my camera. Another day running late. I have a good excuse. Distance learning with a very salty 5-year-old that doesn't want to cooperate at all. But it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Everything is fine. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my 11:11 a.m. Eastern talk, meditation, contemplation. Meditation doesn't always happen in silence with your eyes closed and you just paying attention only on your breath. Sometimes meditation just means careful, quiet, peaceful contemplation. It can happen during a conversation. It's just thoughtfulness, mindfulness. We're going to do that today. It's not going to be a long one because I really want to hear your feedback. We're talking about spirituality that harms. Yes, we're talking about allyship and being not enough. The not is in parentheses because this is something that I see coming up, conversation that's happening a lot on social media. I know I've been having it around toxic positivity, privilege, and new age violence. I had that conversation here on my platform, and then I brought it over to Layla Saad's Good Ancestor podcast live, which has been incredible so far, from behind the scenes, because I'm getting to talk to really amazing people and create that content with Layla and others. So I hope that you are signed up for that at Good Ancestor Live podcast. No, Good Ancestor Podcast Live.com. Good Ancestor Podcast Live.com. It is a donation based program that you can register for. You can pay what you can. And yeah, that's going to be awesome. So today we're talking about spirituality that harms and allyship and being not enough. It is inspired by an anti-racism teacher, Monique Melton. She posted this morning that anti-racism is a verb. It is not a name that you can give yourself. It is not a noun. It is not an adjective that you can use to describe yourself. Anti-racism takes action, and particularly in this space, in the spiritual wellness space, that encompasses everything from tarot card readers to meditation guides to yoga teachers. I've been seeing a lot of not only toxic positivity, but also spirituality that harms in the form of spiritual bypassing. I want to hear about your experiences and what you've been seeing. And I've also been seeing a message that I really want to focus on today because it really, it draws from both of those concepts, or all the concepts that I've already talked about, is this messaging that you have to rest and that you're doing enough, and that you can't allow yourself to become overwhelmed during this time. And I am a meditation guide, and I want people every single day to find moments to connect with themselves and to center themselves and ground themselves. But for me, and what I'm teaching, and the purposes of what I'm teaching, is that I want people to do that so that they can go out and be empowered and create change in the world. So the tagline for my private Facebook community that's linked in the video description is heal your soul, raise your voice. And what I mean by raising your voice is not just speak louder, right? It's not just about, just like getting in people's faces and arguing on the internet behind, a keyboard or a screen. It's about bringing forward your values, the things that are most important to you. And I'm hoping that that is the collective healing of our consciousness and then of our people, being there for each other and raising our voices to bring awareness and raising our level of action to bring change to things that we see are wrong in the world, especially institutionally and systemically, especially around classism, racism, sexism, xenophobia, the issues that affect the most marginalized among us. Hello, Carol. So what I want to talk about, or what I want to talk about with you, I want to engage with you about, is this idea of being and doing enough. So being and doing enough are two different concepts. You are enough. You were created with everything that you need. You were created to do big things in this world. And big can mean run for president of the United States, write a best-selling book, or locally in your community, helping people in need, helping kids get better educations. Like, it's all big when you are reaching out and helping other people, but you were created with all you need to do that. So you are enough. The separate issue, and this is the one that I really want to touch on just quickly because I want your feedback, is, but are you doing enough? And my opinion is that the answer is no. That none of us are really doing enough. Because if we were doing enough, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in. However, the reason that we have survived for so long is because there are certain groups of people. And I would say, in my experience, studying history, and then my lived experience, being part of this community, being part of the response of the crisis that we're all in, is that Black women, in particular, have been showing up and doing more than enough forever. But because the numbers, right, especially, like, let's talk about the United States here. Black women make up a very small portion of our population. So because the numbers are so small, the change cannot be as far reaching as it could be if there were true allies. And that's another part of the title of this conversation, is allyship. Like, what is it? So just like Monique Melton said that anti-racism is not a name that you can give yourself. It is not a noun. It is not an adjective. It's a verb. Allyship is a verb. And I see a lot of people, especially people of racialized privilege, class privilege, financial privilege. And by racialized privilege, I mean they belong to a race, white race, white race. Because yes, I know that it's one human race, but we as a society have been racialized, have privilege. And I see people with privilege a lot giving the message that, like, you're doing enough, you are enough, but also not showing up in the same way and calling themselves allies, giving them self-proclaimed allies. I see it and like, look at your gurus, look at the people that you're watching, your teachers, your guides, your gurus, your spiritual teachers on Instagram, and see how many of them are putting ally or anti-racist in their bio descriptors. You can't call yourself an ally. Allyship is a verb. It's something that you do every single day. So going back to that careful contemplation, that meditation on, I am enough. Am I doing enough? What more could I be doing? I also want you to ask, how was what you were doing before? How did that contribute to where we are now? How did it or didn't it contribute? And believe me, I'm asking myself all of these same questions. Not only what I can do more now, but I have to look back and say, what wasn't I doing? What wasn't I teaching? What wasn't I addressing? Who weren't I talking to with a loud enough voice? How wasn't I raising my voice in a way that was really going to bring about change, especially in my little world? And because that's my lane, right? Like, I have to stay in my lane also. How can I have influence in the spiritual wellness world to make sure that these ideas of colonialism, capitalism, racism, classism do not persist to create more harm? How do I call out spiritual bypassing? You can go to my Instagram today if you're watching this live on April 21st and see what I wrote about spiritual bypassing and being enough and doing enough. So I want to ask you, what is the difference to you? What have you seen? What have you witnessed? Because I'm seeing the people, Black women in particular, the most marginalized people among us in this community, doing the most work. And that is just a manifestation of what has always been, whether it be the feminism movement, the right to vote movement, all of it. It's Black women stepping forward. And a lot of people that hold racialized, financial, educational, class privilege, calling themselves allies and not doing nearly as much work. So we have to meditate and reflect on that and ask ourselves why. And then what can we do about it? And again, I'm talking about this because I know some people will show up like, I didn't come to a meditation guide to learn about racism, because I've gotten that exact comment, right? But this is pervasive in my space. Racism is pervasive in spiritual wellness, and this whole global pandemic has shown a light on it that it's way worse than we could have even imagined. And it's these messages that you're doing enough, rest, telling people that have already been resting, already been very much supported, already hold a lot of privilege to rest because this is overwhelming to them, because maybe they're facing a real struggle for the first time in their lives, a real fear of, bodily harm for the first time in their lives, of their autonomy and their personal civil rights being threatened for the first time in your life. You see a lot of the protesters going out like, I'm getting tickets for walking in the park. Like, I'm not even allowed to be outside. And it's like, okay, well, say that to a Black man, right? That's like these are the kinds of things that we're seeing come forward. And it's really shining a light on what's super, super, super wrong and what has been wrong. And then the violence of, and I'm going to leave it with this, the violence of saying that somehow this crisis, this tragedy, this terrible, terrible thing is a blessing or a lesson or a means to become more enlightened. Because I guarantee the Black folks in Detroit, and I'm just going to pull some statistics, they make up about 30% of the population and account for 70% of the deaths so far of COVID-19, are not looking at this as a blessing or an opportunity. Yes, look for ways to be and show up better in the world, but please don't call this a blessing. This is not a lesson from the universe. This is our doing. And like I said in my Instagram post this morning, viruses happen, but the outcome, the trauma, the tragedy that has happened in the wake of this, or now that we're still in the midst of it, is the direct result of colonialism, racism, white supremacy, white privilege, classism, capitalism. That's why we're suffering the way that we are. And that too many who have already been suffering are suffering way more than most of the others, me included, because I'm sitting up in my house, right? Sitting up in my house, safe. Hey, Jai, thanks for coming. It's late. I'm going to be ending this. I just, I want to hear again what you all think on the topics of, we'll go back to toxic positivity, new age violence, spiritual bypassing, spirituality that does harm, privilege, allyship as a verb and not a noun. It's not something you can call yourself. It is not a descriptor. You're not allowed to call yourself an ally. You could be given that title, but it's only worth that from the person that gives it to you. You can't go around and label yourself as such. And what I believe is that the fact is that we are enough. We are born enough, but we aren't doing nearly enough as a whole. But there are members of this society, particularly Black women, and by another extension, Black and brown women, and the most marginalized among us, LGBTQ communities, the disabled communities, who are doing more than enough every single day to just keep us in survival, because their numbers do not number the population of white folks and white women who can make change like that if they decided to. So if you want to be a true ally, you have to get in the discomfort zone, join ranks, and stand shoulder to shoulder with those who have been doing more than enough, do what they do, and we would see a change instantaneously. So that is the meditation for today. That's something to think about and to chew on. I love you all. I love you all from the bottom of my heart. I thank you for showing up for me and for yourself, because it inspires and compels me to show up for myself and for you. We have to do this in the spirit of collective healing. When I hurt, you hurt. When you heal, I heal. And I love you. I love you. I love you. For real. All of you. All of you, despite what you might think. I love all of you. And I thank you, thank you, thank you. Write what you can do today. Put in the comments what you can do today to make change. Put in the comments what you can do to move into a place of stretch and discomfort to make change, right? If you're comfortable, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening.